thank you to our 3 sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
So we move on from that semi-final, then we build up. And what were your thoughts about, we're obviously in the final now, and the draw will have been made not long after that. We realise we're at home. You're obviously desperate to play in the final at that stage, obviously. Can you remember much about the games leading up to it?
No, I can't. I think we played East Lancs the day before the final. Is that right? East Lancs away, and I think we won there. I remember that game, and the team was already selected. And I think your brother was quite good with me, Matt. I think he told me not long after the semi-final that I was going to be playing in the final no matter what. So that sort of relaxed me a lot, made things easier running up to the final.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's good. And looking, you got a 29 and a 28 on the build-up to it, and then you're 16 at East Lancs. So then let's just have a little chat about the final, what was going on, then for yourself, going through your mind when you're seeing this, the tents being erected and Frank, like a frog on speed. And
absolutely.
Like an idiot. What's your memories around that?
Well, when you think about the 2004 Where's the Cup final, the build-up, like you just said, you automatically think about Frank and the build-up to it. He was fantastic, wasn't he, organising that? Yeah. And as were the rest of the volunteers, absolutely. But what an experience, nobody in the league had seen anything like that. Never mind Lowerhouse fans. That many people watching an amateur game. But one of my funniest memories of that game is actually way before the start of the game. I think we'd been for a team breakfast that morning, and I think we got to the ground very early, probably 10:30, 11:15, far too early. And Ray Clegg was at the ground already, absolutely spannered with a didgeridoo, playing this didgeridoo randomly in front of the changing rooms, absolutely spannered, looked like he was ready for bed. And this is 10:30 in the morning. So that, I don't know why. I don't know where I'm going with this, but that is just one of the things that I will never forget. And I just think how bizarre. I mean, where's he? I know where he's got the didgeridoo from, but what's he doing with it?
Yeah, and I do think, Ben, if looking back at you're right, we were all there far too early and with we burnt far too much energy before it. But I think Ray had maybe smoked something that had got him into the state, got himself into. And then tried to drink strong lager throughout the afternoon.
Is that your policeman intuition, that, Jez, that makes you think that? Or?
Yeah, it was just a gut feeling, really. Standing, a bit of smell, ice spinning, you know what it's like. But yeah, I do remember that, Ben. So what were your thoughts? So we're going out, they're batting first, we've won the toss.
Yeah.
Do you remember it vividly, or is it something that...
Yeah. No, I remember it quite well, really, the first innings. I remember I was stood at mid-off. And I don't think you were bowling, Jez. Did you come on first change?
Second change.
Second change, right. So it must have been Sid or Peter who were bowling, and I was stood at mid-off. Either Mick Ingham or Barry Knowles has hit one to my left, and I've slid and I've dived and stopped this ball, and it still stays with me to this day. I remember the roar and the noise going up when I stopped that ball. It was as if this was very early on, and then when I heard that noise, I thought, "Wow, this is serious, and what a big day this is going to be."
Yeah, and you're right what you say there, because Barry Knowles were on fire. It was really, and I do think I was actually bowling then, Ben, because Sid only bowled 3 overs, and I came on quite early, and I do remember that. I can remember relaxing you a little bit. You stood up and you used to talk. You used to walk on your toes and the carpets under your arm, and that's it. Ben's in the game now. We've got, and then it progresses from there. Their professionals been got out with one of the best balls that's ever been bowled. And then Ian and Knowles coming together. What were your memories of that partnership?
It was carnage, weren't it?
It was
absolute carnage, and you could sense our heads starting to drop a little bit naturally, and the game was getting away from us a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it here. They put 90 on, but I do remember it was in no time, and it was when that run out happened. that it all of a sudden, right now, we're back into a normal game here. You know, and I mean, it's still got 2-3-1, which again is probably, you know, you can add probably another 20% onto that for today's game. But that is still gettable. You know, we'd still be comfortable of getting that. But if
you said there's one thing I do remember, Jez. Sorry to butt in there, and I'm not jumping the gun, but talking about the total 2-3-1. There's another thing that I'll never forget about that day, and I think the Haslingden chairman had quite a bit to say earlier on. But I do remember at half time him waiting for us as we're walking off, and he made a point of telling us that at the time nobody had chased more than 200 in a final. So I always remember that.
Yeah, I think Matt mentioned that, didn't he, when we had Matt on?
He did. He mentioned that. I know, you know, something that Black Ledger mentioned. But Matt,
he said quite a bit in the newspaper, I think, beforehand, didn't he? When if I remember rightly, in the sort of newspaper preview, because we'd done the Watford Do song and everything, haven't we? We'd had a bit of fun with it all, and I seem to remember him saying, well, they're having their day in the sun, and it was a bit disparaging in a way what he said. So obviously it was all mind games at the time, but
it was. I distinctly remember that you know, I think I bowled 3 spells that game, and Matt was moving the bowling around a little bit. I'm trying to help him out, but I do remember Knowles and Dearden looking so comfortable. You know, Mustabar's gone, but these two are looking so comfortable. I'm thinking, you know, they could be pushing late 200s here. I don't know if you've listened to it, Ben, about the stories from Jules de Creek about he was banished with that horrible man.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
That pillaged all those poor nuns all those years ago, and it's all because of one of your fingertips. But that really brought it back round. You know, they've gone, you know, 142 for 2, 156 for 6. You know, so that has completely turned it around. Can you remember much about Matt coming to you? Did he give you much notice about asking you to bowl? Because it was certainly a shock to me. So what was your impression of when that question was asked of you?
Yeah, I don't think there was much notice. Maybe the over before, and I think, you know, I listened to Matt's podcast, and I think he just went off a little bit of a hunch that he needed to try something. So no, not loads of notice, but yeah, no. I, to be honest with you, I wasn't too nervous or anything like that. I just thought back then I probably have one style of bowling these days, and that's, you know, just trundle up with the wicket keeper stood up. But back then, when I was a little bit younger, when I played in the second, I felt like I'd sort of developed 2 ways of bowling, really. Some days I'd absolutely charge in and think I was quick, and you know, opening the ball in the second team with a new ball, and then other days Frank or whoever was keeping, they would stand up to the stumps and I'd bowl within myself a little bit and just try and bowl tight. You know, the game was getting away from us, so I just thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and bowl nice and tight and try and slow the run rate down. Yeah,
because I think all your 6 overs came from the park end as well, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, let's just have a little analytical view of that. You know, people who were worried about bowling from that end, you know, who are a lot more experienced than you. And I don't, you know, that's historically. But that's something maybe as a captain and as a leader and players in the future, that it's not doom and gloom. It's not, let's all think the world's against us. We've got to bowl into this wind, uphill, shortest boundary in the world, I'm going to get smashed. So, you know, that is, you know, it's a significant point, certainly in your career. And
absolutely
stands out for me. You know, can you remember much about the ball that when Knowlesy smashed it back at you?
Yeah, it was probably a juicy half volley, if I'm honest, Jez. And he's absolutely screamed it back at me. And obviously being in my youth then, I've managed to get down and get a finger on it. Quite a decent hand on it.
Yeah.
And deflected it onto the stumps.
Yeah, sorry, it was Steve Dearden that smashed it, obviously, because you've run out, you've run out the lad backing up. But it was
absolutely nailed on for a ton as well, weren't it? Absolutely. The way he was batting.
I think he was on 88, Barry Knowles.
Yeah, he was walking towards a ton. He was stroking about all over the place, weren't he?
And it was absolutely, that track was flat as a pancake. That's why, you know, we were always in the game because it was such a good track that day.
We had a decent groundsman back then, though, didn't we?
Yeah. The current one needs to pull his finger out.
Ben, I was just going to ask you about the run out. Was there any argument about whether you touched it or not? Or
no. Again, not to sound pig-headed, but it was a big hand on it. You know, there was no doubt, and I don't think there was any doubt. It was almost like the whole ground knew what had gone on. And Barry, bless him. I don't think he's ever forgiven me for that. He always mentions it every time I see him. But he was yards out, and I'm on the deck, knowing what I've done. He's just looking at me, and it just sucked the life out of him. And then a bit of a bizarre celebration after it, if you can remember. The ball sort of bounced back to me into my hand, and I picked the ball up and absolutely rammed it into the ground, and the crowd went mad. Absolutely fantastic scenes, and it's I don't know if it's on YouTube, but you can actually go back and watch that, and it's great to watch back. Not the best of cameras back then, obviously, but it is fantastic little moment to watch.
No, it is without a shadow of a doubt, and Stan holds you solely responsible for ridding us of 340 years of debauchery. So we're back on track. Steve Dearden, gets out not long after it. McIntosh gets a few runs. And I think we all believe we're in the game, but the atmosphere was quite different. And I mean, the weather atmosphere, the fans were mad keen, but you could tell there was going to be something happen. There was going to be some rain. There was going to be some sort of a storm. I must admit, I can remember quite a lot about being in the dressing room, and Dooch has mentioned before about it being in the dressing room. And I just had a gut feeling we're going to walk there. I think Vishal's going to do well. He does well in front of crowds. Finch is a quality player, and it's a good pitch, as you've said. Pete Fulton was a good pro and could get you the runs and work it, even if it was only a 40 or a 60. But then, we found ourselves 18 for 2. Can you remember anything? What were you told you were batting at 6 then? Can you remember what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I think I was told I was batting at 6. I don't remember how Finchy got out, but I remember Steve Dearden taking a one-handed catch. I'm sure it's that game. He took a caught and bowled one-handed to get rid of Finch or Vishal. Have you got the scorecard up there?
No, that was Finchy, that.
Finchy, yeah. That was a screamer, diving low to the ground to take that. I remember that. And Peter, unfortunately, found a nasty habit that season of getting out to sort of average bowling without sounding disrespectful. Teams had sussed him out big time by taking the pace off it with, his sort of military medium seam bowlers with the keeper stood up. He really struggled with that. So I remember that. And I remember the partnership with Charlie and Blaise quite well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good assessment of, what Peter was like there. And, you've got Blomley there bowling 10 overs, 1 for 32. And then Blaise has gone out and, he's got 101 ultimately off 119 balls. But I do remember he paced it. He was early on, he was, just making sure he stuck around. Like I said, the weather was swirling round a little bit. Dearden was bowling well, but bowling in very, very short spells. And I think we're all in. We don't need to do it to death. But that partnership there was just unbelievable. The way that they runs and how they manufactured it around. And
We've actually listened to the audio, Jez.
Yeah.
And when you listen to it and they're reading the scores out, and you haven't got the scorecard in front of you, it's actually remarkable when you realise that we won it with over 3 overs to spare. Because because Blaise and Charlie, right at the start of their sort of knocks, weren't scoring freely at all. And did, when you're listening to it, you think we're way behind the 8 ball here. There's not a chance we can actually catch up and get to a point where we win it as we did. And it's interesting when you see the scorecard and you realise that there's actually over 3 overs left at the point we won. You wouldn't have thought that when you listen to it back.
No, I knew.
That's the beauty of, I don't want to go off track here, but that's the beauty of cup cricket. It's my favourite format. It's it's proper cricket, and when you've got sides that need to find 5, 6, even 7 bowlers in some cases, you're always in the game. So that's when you're really tested as a side. If you're, in my view anyway, if you're a good cup team, then you're a good amateur side all round.
And I must admit there, Ben, when you mentioned about, and it's not just because we were batting second, I do remember, and it's all right in hindsight, that they missed a trick or two. They were just letting Charlie and Blaise work it from...
I think the ball must have been all right very early. I seem to remember that.
Yeah, and they were almost, right, we're going to have a ring field, just have 4 in the circle, and we'll leave everyone out, and they can get, 4 singles and over. And it developed from there, with 13 or 14 overs gone for the first 3 batters, and then Charlie and Blaise do what they do. So we've got, I'm in the dressing room, Matt is, Benbow, Dooch, and we're watching this unfold. And then I can distinctly remember thinking, we're not going to finish this because of the weather, I was confident we were going to win the game, but I thought the weather's going to do us here, and we've mentioned it on previous podcasts. Fantastic. All credit to the umpires on that particular game. Can you remember much about that, about the weather, the clouds rolling in? And what was going on in your head?
Yeah, I can remember the weather coming in, and I seem to remember a little bit of an incident during the game that stopped play for a little while. I can't remember exactly what, because I was only young, it's a long time ago now, but there was some sort of incident. Duke, you might be able to elaborate on
it.
Was
it a streaker? Was it not?
No, he was there as well, Mark Hargreaves, he was
Hargreaves, yeah.
But there was some sort of
incident. Rock in one of the tents, weren't they, Ben, down the bottom?
And I can clearly remember Dasher calling all the players over to go down and sort it out. So that was mid-chase as well when the weather was coming in. So that was another distraction.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I wouldn't say that there wasn't a distraction in the tents insofar as something had gone on, but I do remember thinking that they'd made a massive deal of it to try and sort of break the flow up, if you will.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, they ended up with all the team down there and all sorts of stuff, didn't they? And I remember thinking it's all a bit of a play this to try and just upset the rhythm a little bit.
Without a doubt, that's what was happening.
Can you remember who it was, Stanley, or not?
I think Mick Ingham was in front of the tents where it kicked off.
I seem to have been involved.
Yeah, I think he was, and like I say, it was just something and nothing. It was handbags, and I don't know what happened after it, but they all just went back on the field and play carried on, didn't they? It just seemed a massive overreaction or a ploy, really, to try and sort of distract from the run chase that was ongoing.
I've got a funny story. It was a tent that Rottenstall Cricket Club had got, because I remember Brian Payne telling me something about it, and obviously Rottenstall and Haslingden don't like each other. And like you said, I've no doubt that they've tried to to influence the game by doing it, but c'est la vie, that's what happens. So, we're winning this game now. We're going to win it. There's only the weather can spoil it. And I still think, we obviously would have won it if we'd have had to come back. But then Charlie gets out. What's going on in your head then?
I was really looking forward to it, believe it or not. And Matt Hope, just before that, had come. I think I was due in next. And then I think it was Benbow was due in after me. And I actually remember him pulling us to one side. Yeah. And asking us what we thought and how we felt about going in next. And I just had absolutely no problem of going out there. I'd much rather be out there. I know it's a bit of a cliche these days, but I'd much rather be out there than sit there watching.
Yeah.
So, I was desperate to get out there, and great memories looking back, seeing my uncle reach his 100 and hit the winning runs, and being out there as his nephew was fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. And then Blaise getting chaired off, and I know you're getting trampled on as you're coming off, probably nicking everyone's lager. Pints in. But yeah, fantastic memories from all of us. Duke, anything you want to add before we move on 2005?
Ben said he was looking forward to going out to bat. I wasn't. I was getting my gear on, and I was thinking, I do not want to go out. I'm quite happy for these lads to see us home.
I mean, I don't think we needed many when I got out there. Single figures, surely. I think I remember Blaise hitting a 4, maybe a couple more, because I seem to remember him uppercutting Dearden for 6, and I'm sure I was out there.
Yeah. But
I think you ended up just squeezing a 1 off Alan Howarth, and then Blaise whacked the next one for 4. Then he threw long gone.
Yeah. 14 we needed, Ben, when you went out.
14.
I can assure you, Ben, because of your age and because of your youthfulness and your uncles out there, and we were never going to stop you. Me, Joe Beneducci, probably Brembo, Sid, I don't know where he would have been, and Matt wanted to be. We didn't want to go out there at all, no matter how many overs were left and what runs were required. So, all credit. Right, so we've got the 2004, great success. Then look at 2005, and by your own admissions, Ben, you're having a little bit of a meltdown. Some might say you're struggling with where your next run's coming from. You don't want to play in the first team. You've had conversations with the first team skipper, and then just looking through some research that I've done, and you just about score 350 runs in the next 3 seasons. A lad of your ability who then goes on to get nearly probably 1,400 runs in the next 3. What went on there in that 2006, 2007, 2008?
Yeah, so I started college.
Okay.
just about to turn 18, and obviously I turned 18 in some of it, and you know what that brings with it for a lot of lads in the Burnley area. Kind of lost my way a little bit, I think, and I'd lost a little bit of love for the game as well. And again, this is not holding any of this against Dooch. This is my doing, nobody else's. But I do remember the start of the 2000, and we had a friendly away at Carnth, I think, or somewhere up that way. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
We had a friendly, and Stan and Dooch picked me up at the M65 roundabouts. Before we got on the 65, I needed Stan to pull over to let me throw up before we'd even got on the motorway. So this wasn't a very good start. The first pre-season friendly with the first team captain sat in the front seat, I'm in the back, and I'm chucking me guts up before we even got on the 65.
Well, you had a dodgy prawn or something.
So we played this friendly. It's a red hot day. You know how it goes when you're feeling rough, Jez. It's red hot. Not a pleasant afternoon. And on the way back, I think I'd done all right in that game. Couple of wickets, teams, something like that. And I remember this conversation. On the way back, we started talking about the season and what's to come. And I remember Dooch asking me, what do you think about opening the batting? And I was probably feeling a bit whisper-aware at this. You know, I've already thrown my guts up that morning. We had a long day in the spring sun.
Been asked to be dropped off at Tim Bobbin as well on your way back.
I was more than likely going out that night, emceeing somewhere. I'm not sure if the game was the day after or the week after. But anyway, I did say yes. I said, yeah, I wanted to open the batting. So it mustn't have been the day after. It must have been the week after. Because then at training that week, it sort of makes its way out that Barrett is going to open the batting. And I was absolutely, I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely distraught that I wasn't getting to open the batting. And I think I either spoke to Dooch or spoke to Stan. And they had their own reasons. Like I said earlier, you know, you're the first team captain and your job is to pick the team that you think is going to win the game and the batting order and the bowling order. But one of the sort of answers that I was given was that I didn't seem too convincing that I wanted to do it. So that was a terrible start and I didn't take that well. And I probably did take that out on Dooch. So I do apologise for that, Joe.
He should be apologising to you. Barrett Tripathi opening batting. What on earth was going on there?
I'm going to be honest, you know, I get on really, you know, me and Vishal grew up together.
Yeah.
We're in the same year at school, and me and Vishal were inseparable as kids. So I spent a lot of time with Barrett. So regardless of the fact that they played at Burnley, X, Y, and Z, I got on really, really well with them, you know, round at their house, they're round at my house. But if you remember rightly, Vishal and Pankaj had left after 2005. And I felt that I could see what was going to happen in the next couple of seasons. So I could not understand, for the love of me, why Barrett was opening the batting when he probably wasn't going to be around for much longer. That's the way I was looking, rightly or wrongly.
Let's not get carried away. We did it once.
Was it the first game of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't stick with it. He did it once.
Can I point out, Joe?
By the third
that
game
is
of the
one
season,
time too many, though, isn't it? Come on.
Right. But by the third game of the season, Ben Heap was opening the batting.
How did I do?
44.
Fucking there you go then.
Well, let's see. A part of being a decision maker is being able to admit when you're wrong.
I don't think
Probably cleared that bit up.
I don't think Barrett even opened the batting. He was captain at Burnley.
I don't remember Barrett excelling with a bat at any point in second team either. Fantastic bowler, but I never remember thinking he's going to be a brilliant batsman as well. But
so, you know, I'm going to be honest. There was part of me just thinking that we're just trying to keep him sweet here because he's going to leave.
He's apologised now, Ben. He's apologised. Realises he was wrong.
So, yeah, Jez, terrible start. You know, I occasionally contributed, I think, over 2006 and 2007. But, yeah, I found it difficult. And in 2007, a certain John Finch took over the captaincy, I think.
2007, Finch he did, yeah.
We might need another podcast for that year, Jez, but...
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that 2006, 2007, 2008 seasons, and I can't recall a great deal about that, so I don't know whether Matt Stanek and, you know, I wasn't sure who were captain in 2006 or 2007 or 2008. They were swapping around like I can't work it out with actual captains. It was a case of toss up. And
yeah.
Can you remember out about that, Matt? I mean,
I remember one thing about 2000. Sorry, Matt, to jump in there. I do remember one thing about 2006, and again, you know, it goes back to his last point about learning and getting experience. And unfortunately, and this isn't a dig at the current crop of professionals, but unfortunately these days, you know, we don't get the same quality over. That's not being disrespectful, but I remember being stood at mid-off and watching Ryan Harris bowl at Chris Cairn and knock his off stump back at Bake-Up, seeing that cartwheeling, you know, that type of thing will never leave me. And then, of course, in the alternative fixture, I think he got a ton down at Lowerhouse. You know, what an experience for a 17, 18-year-old kid getting to watch that type of thing.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And we've possibly, you know, crack every time we have one podcast and we're ready to get out there, we've another 3 that come out on back of it. Because what happened in those 3 years, I wonder?
I tell you, a couple of observations of mine around that time. They sort of lost years, aren't they, in a way? Like you say, can't really remember what went on. We underachieved, I think it's fair to say, with what we had available to us.
Yeah.
Players-wise, we underachieved because I think towards the end of that period we had Will Driver for a year and some others, didn't we? So we had some great cricketers and didn't achieve a great deal. But one thing that struck me, and I actually exchanged some messages with Joe Martin about it the other day, was I think to some extent we'd been a bit spoilt with Macca and Ryan as pros, in that they were absolutely exceptional pros. And I think we sort of fell into a little bit of a trap of trying to find the perfect pro as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And if you look, obviously 2007, Ryan did the first 5 games of the season, but it was all the first 10 games or whatever it was. But he was only ever going to do part season, as he pointed out in his podcast. I think we'd signed John Moss, hadn't we? And it all fell through.
Yeah.
And we ended up with Aaron O'Brien. Now, if you now have a look at Aaron O'Brien's stats for that year,
7, that's Danny. 2007, Aaron O'Brien.
2007, yeah, that's right. If you look at Aaron O'Brien's stats from that year, they're absolutely phenomenal. In a year that it absolutely pissed it down. And I think Rishton, not taking anything away from them, but a sort of fairly average Rishton side managed to win the league come the end of that year. Saeed Anwar had an excellent year for them. Year after, Brendan Drew, we were chasing that sort of perfect pro, I think, a little bit in that period as well.
Yeah.
And never quite were able to get to the point where we had a Macca or a Ryan. And then literally, we've mentioned Jason Crazy was signed. What a signing he would have been. And then literally we get to 2011 where a little bit the money's run out and what have you, and we take a different approach and we end up with Frankie, who's a league-winning pro, and takes us to completely new heights. So it's something that's always struck me about that period, that I think we lost our focus from finding the next sort of up-and-coming players to chasing that perfect pro, if you will.
Yeah, you agree with what you're saying there. I would dispute O'Brien's stats were fantastic.
His bowling stats, Jez.
49 wickets.
49 wickets at about 9.5 and going at 2.4 and over. Phenomenal. He was only there half a season.
I was going to say, his economy, I do remember him just beating the bat constantly, Aaron O'Brien, just beating the bat for fun.
Yeah. And from a batting point of view, he won us a game at Burnley, didn't he? And he struggled with the bat, but it was the season. I think I ain't got the league table in front of me.
This time, we're at 12 games or something.
From no results point of view, it was phenomenal how many no results we had. So his bowling stats. And the thing I mentioned to Joe, it's one of life's great mysteries. And I was heavily involved in the committee and things at the time. And I'm not criticising anybody, because at no point did anyone sit there and say we should give this fellow another go, if you know what I mean. Bizarre, really, when you look at it. And I think we'd all
He went on to have a really, really good limited overs first class career as well. He played in all them Big Bash, early editions at Big Bash. You know, he was like a go-to bowler in T20 in Australia.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? It's one of those things when you look back and because like I say, I don't remember anyone at any point saying we should re-sign him. And now, if you got a bowler that did that for you now, you'd think, get him re-signed, wouldn't you?
And Brendan Drew as well. Why did we not re-sign him? Could he not come back? Because
Brendan
700 runs, a couple of tons, and bowled half decent pace.
He did. Brendan was slightly different in that he started the season fantastically well. I think his batting was much better than what we'd expected, and he used to hit miles. And if you remember, he used to hit some of the biggest sixes I've ever seen. But I think he had maybe 50 wickets by July-ish, but then finished with 55. So I think he was one that we were thinking of re-signing, but then he just fell away. And then he ended the season at Gloucestershire, did he? Somewhere like that.
Yeah.
end of the season playing county cricket, didn't he? And just covering for us at weekends. But no, it's just strange. It's a strange period, that, because we had so many good players, but we didn't seem to do anything like we should probably have done at that time.
Order! Send more house to save the house!